Good, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Citizen A, where we wrap the week's current affairs with the best political team on television from a very Auckland perspective. Warning, we're as firm bound as Fox News. Joining me tonight on a revolving panel of bloggers and Auckland opinion shapers. She's the most powerful female politician in the country. Her hobbies include environmentalism, Westism and fighting evil. The Deputy Mayor of the Auckland Super City and high-ranking Jedi Knight, Penny Holtz. And he runs the best independent news site in New Zealand and makes Edward R. Murrow look like Paul Henry. Editor of Scoop.co.nz, the ever-brilliant Selwyn Manning. Welcome to you both. Coming up tonight, Issue 1, Len Brown keeps stum over Māori board fiasco. Why the secrecy? How much is this crap going to cost us? And is Rodney Hyde laughing hysterically in his Epsom bunker? Issue 2, gaggle of gays and self-interested unionists? Is Damien O'Connor correct that the Labour Party list is too Auckland focused? Issue 3 tonight, South Auckland has been a test case for Simon Power's conveyor belt of pet food grade justice. What are the dangers of changing legal aid, and will decent legal representation be limited to just the rich? And we'll end the show on a final word, but let's kick things off with Issue 1. Len Brown deals to the issue of the Māori Statutory Board by cloaking it in secret. Why can't we know what is happening, and are we getting value for money? Selwyn, so after the last media scalping, Len decides to hide the debate to get an agreement. Pragmatic politics or dirty deeds done dirt cheap?
Pragmatism's got a role in these things.
Yep.
I think what we've found, Bomber, is today we can see very clearly that a deal has been struck.
Yep.
So we know the answers of why it was done in secret.
Why?
If you're close to a deal,
Yep.
and it's in the public's interest, as a politician, you would get that deal done.
Yep.
You wouldn't risk that by going public and basically, letting the council perhaps act in a way that would be contrary to the public's interest.
You can't negotiate in public, very difficult to do.
Oh, well, in normal circumstances you will. And
Yep.
from what I saw, most of this debate has actually been aired out in public.
Yep.
That narrow, from the point of view, let's look at this. You've got a person that actually campaigned for his mayoralty on openness.
He did.
If there is a pattern of secrecy that starts to actually build up, then we've got a concern.
Yep.
If he is able to actually achieve results in his councillors and his type 5 team, if you want to put it that way, are able to get results, well then you've got to applaud that. This is what we voted for. We voted for, in some ways, for trust and to make sure that this city progresses.
We did.
Let's yeah.
Penny, people's hero Kathy Casey, and she is a people's hero, wasn't happy about this. As Deputy Mayor, why did you vote to have this heard in secret?
And I agree. I mean, Kathy's fantastic. We probably agree on 90% of the issues.
99.
I just adore her passion. Yep. But I think this was an extremely pragmatic decision. Two things. Number one, we have behaved badly as a council in public over this because we had a decision made. Councillors ran out once the decision had been made the first time round, after all voting for it, and then said to the media, "Oh my God, this is terrible."
Yeah.
So I guess we need to look at ourselves. Secondly, this was a High Court case pending. If we were to take legal advice and discuss this sensibly, would you do that in public? No. Our main job is to sensibly steward ratepayers' money, make sure that we deal with things legally and properly, and in this case we needed to do that behind closed doors. The Māori Statutory Committee held their discussions behind closed doors on their take on the offer. We did the same. As soon as we'd had the ability to talk with them about the offer, everything was made public. I guess that's what happens in business, and that's what happens normally.
Selwyn, surely the only hope here is that this entire joke will get re-legislated. Sure, this has got to go back to Parliament, doesn't it?
Oh, one would expect it will have to, and one would hope too that this council, by its own experience, will be able to give some advisories and actually start to drive the shape of what future legislation will be.
Yeah.
This thing relating to the secrecy, I can understand many who would have concerns from this point of view, that the structure and the setup that was dealt to Aucklanders by way of the ACT Party and the National Party is one where many functions of council, like we know, are cloaked in secrecy. With this issue that we're speaking about, though, I see it as an exception because it was obviously close to a deal being struck.
Right.
You've got High Court threats around this.
Yeah.
in some ways, if you are protecting the public's interest in Auckland over such a matter, then you would make sure that you do not jeopardise such a deal if it was really close.
No.
It's pragmatism.
Penny, in the Epsom bunker where Rodney Hyde is spending his last winter, do you think he's laughing long and hard at the mess he's left for you to clean up?
I could be, I could make a glib comment around that, but I think Rodney Hyde, the reality of what he has done is dawning on him. I saw him the other day, and, to be fair, I don't think even Rodney expected the schmozzle that he's handed to us.
That's the genuine feeling, isn't it? He didn't actually know that this was going to go that far, did
The
it?
part that I guess I probably get most angry about is someone who was the most critical politician in the Auckland region of the super city. I'm now the apologist for the decisions that we have tried to carry out in good faith. We were handed the Auckland legislation. We were handed the Māori Statutory Committee. We tried to do this with dignity and respect and in good faith, and have been caned for that.
Surely there's some positives though, Penny, in the sense
Find
that
them for
there
me,
used
Selwyn.
to
I need them.
there used to be a fragmented Auckland, didn't it? No real
That's right,
decisions
good reasons
were made.
for superset.
Yeah.
Yep. One, two.
Yeah, but
So
some
unity.
decisions can be made by
Indeed.
having one single authority, and the
Absolutely.
positives of having some influence, perhaps arguably, on central government, so that the boffins in Wellington do not demonstrate some sort of authority over Auckland.
Which we would love to do. Our one great big test, we come up with our single collective idea in a city rail loop. The one key thing that the entire Auckland community agrees on, we go to Wellington, they go, I don't think so.
But didn't they come up to Auckland recently?
They did, and we're working on that, so watch that space.
Twist their arms. Question to both of you. Is the budget of 1.7 million value for money from unelected, unmandated Māori representatives? This gets up my nose, that it's still, they are not elected.
Oh, absolutely. If you're going to have representation, well, then it should be elected by the common people.
Yeah.
We can see Māori's argument of saying, well, we're, Tainui and others, Ngāti Whātua, have appointed their preferred people through. So in a sense, there's an element of democracy that's in behind that. But then it's an abstract kind of thing when you're actually taking it to the public. The public, for example, what about urban Māori? This particular area is highly represented by urban
that's
Māori.
right, yeah.
Well, where's urban Māori's interest in this whole deal?
Yeah. Is it 1.7 million well spent?
I don't think we need to, kind of reduce this just down to economics. Having spent time with our representatives on the committees from the Māori Statutory Board, they are a good bunch. Now, as someone who marched up Queen Street on the Hikoi for Māori seats, I've been a strong advocate for Māori seats. 2 Māori seats, 190 grand for 2 elected Māori, versus whatever, 3.4
Rodney was
million.
And we've got to
So-
see the trends here too, that National Party through the 1990s was trying to navigate a way to actually get rid of Māori seats in Parliament.
Yep.
ACT has always been anti-Māori
That's right,
seats
very,
in Parliament.
very,
This
very,
is its testing ground. ACT
Yep.
always tests its policies on territorial local authorities.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing.
Question to
here
both of you. Did Cameron Brewer and Cameron Slater both skip around laughing when they found out Len was holding the debate in secret so they could maximise political damage? They skipped. Cameron skipped.
Absolutely, and going from the Twitter response.
Oh my, he's unbelievable, isn't he?
But when you boil it all down, if they're representing a particular elite that was actually voted out here, it's a little bit early and a bit churlish to actually be gloating over such small.
Yeah, but that's
things.
them, isn't it? Did they skip and dance?
I think a lot of skipping and dancing is had while the rest of us actually do the hard work.
That's right. Yeah, vote. Good words there. Who wins? Who loses in this? Statutory Board?
Well, I think the ratepayers have won over the Statutory Board resolution,
Yep.
because we've saved ourselves some coin. Surely that goes to the betterment of the region.
Who wins? Who loses?
I think finally the Māori Statutory Board have really had to interrogate their budgets, look at what they're going to do. We understand more clearly what our relationship is, and I think hopefully we come out with some dignity intact.
Yeah, let's hope that Matthew Hooton doesn't get a cut. Issue 2. Just when you thought Labour had finished self-mutilating itself, Damien O'Connor suggested the Labour Party list is a gaggle of homosexuals and self-interest unionists from Auckland. Selwyn, a collective of Damien O'Connors is called a murder of breeders. He's just trying to win West Coast here, isn't he?
It's a little bit of both. I think there's some substance to what he's saying. If we take the bigotry out of it, the Labour Party could be actually quite proud of itself of actually being quite inclusive of many groups that were once ostracised from Parliament.
Absolutely.
And were actually considered to be subscribing to groups that were illegal in this country for a long time. Not suggesting the women's areas and the unionists in that camp. But what it does do is it does indicate where the old backbone club members inside Labour, those centrists, those ones who are more progressive in economic kind of theories, perhaps, and liberalisation, where they're feeling the pinch now.
Yeah.
You know, and Damien O'Connor is a classic case of that. Phil Goff is another one.
That's right.
You know, and the Labour Party has changed around them. We've got to remember that the Labour Party's brand is one of working Labour. But at the same time, for a party that's positioned as this alternative to a national party, it does need to be mindful that it represents all of society.
Yeah.
It's very good at representing the gays.
Yep.
It's very good at representing the union movement, and it needs to actually make sure, as the major party, that it represents centre New Zealand as well.
Penny, as the most powerful female politician in the country, do you feel that the Damien O'Connor garden variety blokes of this country look at your political position as earned or given?
God, that's a hard one, and I'm feeling at the moment, you know, the debate that we had before about Māori seats, that the way that these issues unfold, a lot of the running is being done at the moment by the middle ground kind of Kiwi blokes really and their view of life. So those of us who push back from a slightly different position, it does make it difficult. So, you know, a gaggle of gays and unionists need to anchor, you know, one side of the argument to balance out, you know, the view on the other side. I think Damien is simply expressing the views of a large part of his community. Maybe we need to make room for some of those views, but not in a way that, you know, bullies the gays and the unionists.
Yeah, Selwyn, National have factions. They have farmers,
Yep.
bankers,
Yep.
police, corporations and rednecks. And they seem to be all expanding policy, yet it's Labour's factions that get all the negative scrutiny. When will Labour stop kicking home goals?
Probably when it gets a true sense of being able to achieve a win in the polls. I would imagine that after this election's out of the way, and if things go the way the polls are suggesting and National re-enters into the Treasury benches, that you'll see Labour then nail down knowing that what has occurred in the November of this year makes it achievable for a win in 2014.
Yeah.
That's when you see them start to actually work. You saw a little bit of nailing down in the week after all the fiasco with the Goff camp.
Yeah.
And it would be interesting to see if that actually takes some sort of momentum. The National Party, though, is a classic case of the Conservatives and the neoliberals never really airing their dirty stuff in public.
Oh no.
You
keep it
know,
all quiet.
they know they want to win, so they're
Yeah.
not going to actually do that. Their discipline, from the point of view of believing they're born to rule,
Yeah.
is absolutely sacrosanct
Yeah.
in a way.
Penny, O'Connor claims too much focus on Auckland in the party list, but shouldn't Auckland gain more representation as the largest city in this country?
And we face this whether we're debating transport budgets, health budgets, or list MPs. Auckland simply is a third of the country, and we need good representation by, you know, a sufficiently robust bunch of MPs. And if that's what we've got through the list MPs, so be it.
And Bomber, you know, we cannot forget that in the 1990s, when the National Party last ruled, there was no cabinet representation in the Auckland area.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know,
No,
we had
not at
Clem
all.
Simic sitting there at one stage,
Yes.
and that was about it.
That's
you know.
about as good as it gets.
And you can't forget that. This is turning around. You know?
Did Goff smack Damien hard enough? Question to both of you.
If you were Goff, you would want to give him one hell of a backhander, wouldn't
Right,
you?
quietly. Damien, come here.
But all that would do is actually keep it going
That's
for
right,
a bit
that's
longer.
right, that's
so
right. So he had to laugh it
politically,
off, didn't he?
pragmatically, he had to laugh it off,
Yeah.
and he did, and he seemed to be able to hold back the other factions that would have wanted to get O'Connor by the throat in public. So, you know, good
Charles
on him.
Cheval looked like he was
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
punch
absolutely.
him, didn't he? How did Goff handle it?
I think he was on a hiding to nothing. You know, when someone's sitting in the corner alight, you know, do you throw more petrol it was going to just play itself out.
The thing that really annoyed me about that was that when you actually look at the representation of what was it, the gays and the Pacific Islanders and the women within Labour, it actually married up pretty much to how the numbers actually break down in society. It's actually quite representative of society.
Yeah, I think what we see though is an over-representation of some groups perhaps in the policy development areas and the influence over caucus, where the power is actually held. But, you know, should we gripe about that? I mean, the alternative, we've had a century of white, old, boring men
rich,
actually
white, old
dictating
men,
this country's fortunes or otherwise. It's good to actually see it.
And that's what I've always noticed, that the Damien O'Connors of the world sound like that whingy old group of guys who don't feel like they're being listened to anymore. And it's a kind of a shrug and we'll get used to it.
But
you actually have to share power.
For Labour, it's an important electorate to win back.
That's right.
You know?
That's right. That's the difficulty.
And I'd have to say, when you look at some of the Labour MPs who've been the most effective, we've had some extraordinary gay women MPs who have been some of the cleverest, most progressive and most high achieving. So, you know, I think to a certain extent they just need to get over
the sad thing is this kind of thing puts labels on people. We're all people.
Well, it does.
You know, what's it matter
I would
what
rather
we're
have, you know, let's have a good mix of high achieving, competent, you know, people who can actually deliver, rather than label them gay, straight, union or non-union.
Who wins, who loses on the Labour Party list?
Well, I'm quite pleased to see the likes of those centrists like Stuart Nash actually make it within striking distance.
Yeah.
You know, if Labour has a future, it needs to be able to eat away at the hold that National has on the provinces. And, you know, Napier is significant. It's good to see them still there.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Who wins, who loses on the Labour Party list?
Well, I think Auckland wins, which is good, and I think maybe some of the middle ground good old boys lose.
Thank you, panel. Coming up, South Auckland has been the test case for Simon Power's conveyor belt of pet food grade justice. Why will only the rich have the best legal representation? Citizen A is back after the break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Citizen A. We're reviewing the week with Scoop editor Selwyn Manning and Deputy Mayor of the Auckland Super City, Penny Holtz. Issue 3 tonight, Dame Margaret Baisley put together a joke of a report using nothing more than gossip as evidence to claim that legal aid was being rorted. I thought only Scott Watson could be convicted by such circumstantial evidence. It's resulted in Simon Power's conveyor belt of pet food grade cheap justice changes to legal aid. Selwyn, I put it to you that if you are young or brown or poor, under this streamlined farce you are screwed. And if you are young, brown and poor, you may as well just plead guilty right now.
You know, once again, the National Party has used South Auckland as a litmus test for its policies. We saw it in the 90s. You know, you have to look at these things from trends so that you can see what you're dealing with here, I think. We saw every social experiment that the National Party of the day in the 1990s wanted to actually create tested in South Auckland. We saw it in health. We saw it in the population-based funding formulas.
That's right.
We saw it with the Crown Health
Weaker societies always get it first, right?
They do, you know, and all of these types of things are coming back into the South Auckland area. The National Party couldn't give a damn, really, in the sense that it doesn't squeeze any vote out of South Auckland of any significance. So with these types of things, it can test it there. It can actually see what kind of effect it has on the demographic and arguably give some sort of litmus test on what fiscal benefits it can actually accrue. But at the end of the day, it is wrong and it's bad policy. You've got lawyers, you've got the judicial fraternity coming out in force saying that this is wrong. The government is saying, but it's going to save us money. Why should justice come at such cost? And the other thing is the lawyers and everybody say it's going to cost more.
Penny, we have a private prison system that now has a profit motive for longer and harder sentences. While our crime rate is dropping, our incarceration rate is second only to America. How certain are you, as a community leader, that this gutted version of cheap justice won't result in more miscarriages of justice?
I guess the worry that we've all got with this sort of McDonald's justice version and drive-through justice is, you know, it's exactly as someone was saying. It marginalises some of our most vulnerable communities. But what it also does, and the bigger picture that's happening around New Zealand, is this kind of centralisation of services. So it's sort of lumping services together, running them out of Wellington and Christchurch and Auckland to deliver streamlined, one-size-fits-all services without looking at the community need and the community impact. And I think this change to the justice system is just another example of that sort of thing that concerns me deeply, that it doesn't take into consideration the absolute need in communities like the West and the South to have justice integrated into the way that communities work. And I know out in Waitakere, we've always had a fantastic relationship with our judges who are deeply involved in the community. This removes the right of those, vulnerable members of society to make choices around their lawyers and for justice to be more involved in solutions. It just processes people and sends them to prison.
And quite quickly, what really concerns me about this particular part is that it isn't even looking at the restorative areas.
No,
this
not
is
at all,
actually
not at all.
this is actually stepping back and preventing those at the front end from really adequately being able to have a defence. And so that really tampers with that sacredness of justice.
Gordon Campbell on Scoop said this week, so far the key government have reduced the right to a jury trial, extended the powers of search and surveillance by state agencies, restricted the rights against self-incrimination, sought the ability to conduct trials in the absence of the accused, and ended the independence of the agency dispensing legal aid. And that's even before we got to this week's changes. How come such a massive reversal of legal civil liberties has gone through with such little debate in this country?
It beats me. There is examination in many courts, and Gordon's piece is a classic piece
Brilliant
of
piece.
that. It's well thought out, which one could argue that the policy isn't.
Yes.
The fact of the matter is that we have a party, the National Party, that is so far ahead in the polls, it believes it's bulletproof.
Right.
And my belief is that it's so far out ahead now that it believes it can actually exploit that situation, not only with the legislation, but also the urgency in the House. It can exploit the whole situation to force the Parliament into making bad decisions. It's two lame duck parties that are on each arm. They don't know if they're Arthur or Martha in a sense. They're out there actually trying to figure out how to save their own parties, let alone putting through good votes on such things. It's
Penny, how are those who are earning just above $22,000 going to pay for justice in New Zealand with the rising cost of food, rents and rates? We're making justice just for the rich here, aren't we?
And the Talkback Brigade would say, well, if they can't afford to pay for lawyers, they shouldn't do the crime. The reality is our justice system is full of people with drug and alcohol issues. It's full of people with mental health issues. And again, it's our most vulnerable people who are not going to be able to pay for the justice they deserve.
Would remind those critics out there that today the national government, the National Party and government announced $352 million, $350,000 being paid in compensation to a man who was wrongfully convicted of rape prior to the latest technologies of DNA being in evidence.
We're going to see more of that, aren't we?
That is a good example of why you need good defence at the front end.
Question to both of you. How ironic is it this free market government are forcing people to use the monopolised public defence services? Isn't there a certain irony there?
Yeah, irony. We need, what can you say in answer to that?
Isn't it? Right, roll your eyes, right? I mean, here's a government who goes, free market, free market, free market. Oh, you're all going to lose your right. You're all going to lose your right to be able to appoint your own person because you've all now got to go through the monopolised services of the public sector.
Like the lawyers said this morning in a New Zealand Herald article, and they referred to this and they said, this is nationalising what we have. We will have a change in government, meaning, arguably a centre-left. And they said the pendulum will swing back into the privatisation of it. The irony is on every
And we're
flank.
going through the ringer, to bring it back to just something really practical, trying to join up all our rubbish services in Auckland and having to go through all those challenges around monopolies for something that would be fantastic for the Auckland community, would save money, would deal with rubbish, and minimise waste. And, I guess we just have to say, why don't we apply the same rule to all?
Quick question to both of you, something slightly different. Simon Powers announced he is stepping down from his role as Minister of State-Owned Enterprises. The cynic in me demands to know what the odds are that Simon Powers will go to work for Solid Energy or another state-owned asset about to be privatised off to the Chinese. What do you give me? What odds are you going to give me on that?
I don't know. I hear that he's going, to prop up his his late father's business.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you take the National Party at their word?
Oh, well, I don't know. He just suddenly stepped down from state-owned enterprise, didn't he?
They didn't explain where the conflict of interest
No,
lay.
they didn't, did they? They didn't really
maybe
explain that,
the odds
did
are
they?
going in your favour pretty quickly.
Odds, you going to give me odds on that, Penny?
I don't have inside gossip on
Who
the
went-
National Party, so I.
I wish I could tell you everything Cameron Slater tells me. Okay, who wins, who loses from Simon Powers' cheap pet food grade conveyor belt of justice?
No one does, not even the government on this.
Yeah.
From a fiscal point of view, it is not going to save one bean. It's actually going to waste our good taxpayers' money on it.
Who wins, who loses?
I think we all lose. I think we lose that kind of component of natural justice that should be absolutely integral to the justice system, and it concerns me.
Penny, is that one your final word for this evening is?
Yeah, right at this time for the next month, you'll see the National Party desensitising the public over many different areas in the lead up to the budget. The budget's in May, and we can expect over the next few weeks to see many a justification for something that is being prepared that is going to be more severe than anybody.
Father of all budgets is coming.
Oh.
Forget the mother of all budgets, father's coming.
This
isn't
is like the Dracula of all budgets, I
Yes.
think, is what we're going to have here.
Penny, final word?
Well, I'm still wearing my pink anti-bullying
Did
T-shirt.
you hate bullying, Penny?
Because
you hate
I
it.
just bloody hate bullying. But I think that it's something that we just need to take seriously. And once you start thinking about what bullying means in its widest terms, it's bullying by the media to achieve results that they make up their minds about. It's bullying in business, it's bullying around the table at council meetings, and it's bullying in schools of our most vulnerable. And I think we just need to be vigilant and call it out when we see it, and just remove it from the way that, we run our lives. So I'm going to continue to wear pink every time I feel the need to strap on a bit of bravery and hold those bullies at bay.
Oh, bless you. Okay, thank you, Selman. Thank you, Penny. Ladies and gentlemen, to my final word. Rather than show real leadership of the police, the apologist cheerleader Greg O'Connor is defending the police arresting Tikitane for singing a little ditty by NWA. O'Connor should be saying that the police got this one wrong, that arresting an artist for singing a song they don't like was an abuse of power and a step too far, just as it was with Dave Dobbin 25 years ago for the Queen Street riot. O'Connor should be apologising to Tikitane, not trying to pointlessly defend police arrogance, especially in the week of that basher cop walking free from a multiple assault allegation trial. Our need to slavishly worship authority is a deep cultural flaw exhibited time and time again in our jury system. Folks, the Taliban arrest artists singing songs they don't like. This is a democracy. Someone needs to tell Greg O'Connor that the police don't have the right to arrest people based on songs they choose to become offended by, because that's what the police in Libya do. If you like tonight's show, please join our Citizen A Facebook site and connect with other like-minded news citizens, and follow me on my Citizen Bomber Twitter and Citizen Bomber Facebook page. Thanks for watching, whānau. Good night, Aotearoa.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.